Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be reviewing the Holosun EPS carry, and I'm going to tell you what I like and don't like about this optic. Holosun sent me this optic to review about 6 months ago, but I don't like to review without using the device for a good amount of time. And yesterday I had to change the batteries, so I figured now's a good time to make a review. The first thing that impressed me was the size and how well it mounted to this Glock 48. Though I did have some initial frustration getting it mounted because all the necessary mounting hardware was not included in the box. But thankfully the people over at Calculated Kinetics hooked me up with a mount. It's kind of frustrating that Holosun doesn't include the necessary mounting hardware for the Glock 48 and 43, but hopefully in the future they'll change this. The next thing is the number of settings and reticle options beyond the simple dot. The reticle options include a dot, a circle with a dot, and then just a circle. The power options include manual, which allows you to adjust the brightness with these buttons. And then there's also a lockout mode so that you can lock it to whatever brightness setting you want it to. And finally, there's a solar mode, which doesn't mean that it charges via solar, but that the brightness is dictated by the surrounding light. The solar mode sounded like a great idea initially, but the problem with this setting is that if you're in a dark room and you're aiming into a well-lit area, the reticle is going to adjust to the room you're in and not the area you're aiming into. And if you're in a bright area aiming into a darker area, the reticle is going to be brighter than it needs to be for that darker area. So I recommend just setting the reticle to a brightness that works in low light and bright conditions. The next awesome feature is the shake awake. I was a little hesitant at first and worried about the reliability of this, but it works so well that I didn't even notice it was working. What I mean is that the moment I grab my gun, the reticle turns on. I was curious if this feature was actually doing anything, so one day I set my gun on the table long enough for the reticle to turn off, and then I tested to see how much motion was required to activate it. And I only needed to tap the gun to get the reticle to turn on. So this shake awake feature is extremely sensitive and reliable. And this is why I really appreciate the innovation of Holosun compared with other optic manufacturers. As stated earlier, I received the unit about 6 months ago and I just recently changed the battery. And pro tip, if you have Amazon Prime, then just subscribe to regular shipments of your optics batteries and set the frequency to how often you plan to change the battery. So for this optic, I subscribe to get these batteries every 5 months, so that I'll change them right before they die. I also love how the battery compartment can be accessed without removing the optic from the slide. This means that you don't have to screw up your zero every time you change the battery. Something else I like about this optic compared to other optics of similar size is that it's completely enclosed so that you don't have to worry about dust or dirt getting on the emitter. And the things I don't like really don't have much to do with the device itself, but more so the gun community's reaction to these devices and how they've used them to solve a problem that they've created. And that problem I'm referring to is front sight focus.
Bring your focus consciously in from the target to the front sight. If you can read the lettering on the target, your focus is not correct.
You're going to want to put all of your effort in focusing on the front sight, which means that the rear sight will be blurry and the target will be blurry.
That hard focus has to be on the front sight. The target will be blurry and the front sight will be sharp and clear.
Many people get into red dots because they believe that you cannot do target focus aiming unless you are using a dot, but this could not be further from the truth. I've been shooting with iron sights like red dot sights for 20-something years. The only difference is that with iron sights, you have to obtain sight alignment, but this can still be done if you are target focused. Now, I didn't intend to turn this into an advertisement for my course, but if you want more information on this, then click the link in the description or just scan this QR code. The last two things I like about this optic were not things I anticipated before receiving it. The first is that I love how you can use the optic itself to cycle the action with gross motor movements. This means that I can simply use the palm of my hand to cycle the action or release the slide instead of grabbing the slide. And I find this to be a much easier and effective way to cycle the slide, especially with smaller framed guns. The next benefit relates to dry fire. And if you've been a follower of this channel for a while, then you know I'm a huge fan of dry fire practice, especially tools that make dry fire practice more effective and fun. And the first thing you should notice when looking through a red dot optic is that the slight movements of your hand are far more noticeable than they are with iron sights. This means that when you are doing dry fire practice with an optic, you get much more feedback and can fix small errors in your trigger control much faster. I honestly didn't perceive this as being a benefit, but I think that red dot sights are an excellent dry fire training tool. Overall, I've been extremely impressed with this optic. My only critique is the impracticality of the automatic brightness feature and the subsequent solar panel that comes with that. But this is a minor critique, and I'm sure there are some people who could benefit from this. I hope this review was helpful, and do me a favor and share this video with at least one person by tapping that share arrow. Thanks again for watching, and as always, train to a higher standard.